Before we dive in, a quick but important note. The information in this video is for educational and informational purposes only, and is not a substitute for professional medical or psychological advice, diagnosis, or treatment. I am not a doctor or licensed therapist. Always seek the advice of a qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical or mental health condition. The roar of the crowd fades into a dull hum. Your lungs are on fire. Every muscle screams. You look at the clock, 10 seconds left. This is it. The moment you've trained for thousands of times. In practice, you nail this shot, this play, this move 9 times out of 10. But this isn't practice. And a voice in the back of your head, a cold, quiet whisper says, "Don't screw this up." Suddenly, your hands feel clumsy. Your focus shatters. The confidence you had just moments ago evaporates. And you hesitate. That split second of hesitation is all it takes. The buzzer sounds. The game is over. And you're left with that sinking, familiar feeling. Why can't I perform when it matters most? If that sounds familiar, you are not alone. This is the single biggest barrier that separates good athletes from great ones. It's not a lack of skill, it's not a lack of strength, and it's not a lack of desire. It's the gap between what you can do and what you actually do under pressure. We spend years, even decades, honing our physical craft. We lift weights, we run drills, we study film, we perfect our technique until it's second nature. We build our bodies into finely tuned machines. But how much time do we spend training the one thing that controls it all? The 6 inches between our ears. The greatest athletic tragedy isn't losing. It's knowing you lost to yourself. It's walking off the field, the court, or the mat, knowing you were physically capable of winning, but your mind got in the way. For too long, the mental side of sports has been treated like some kind of mystical gift. You either have it or you don't. You're either clutch or you choke. That is a lie. A complete and total myth. The champion's mindset is not born. It is built. It is a skill just like a perfect free throw, a powerful serve, or a flawless takedown. It can be trained, it can be strengthened, and it can be mastered. And over this entire series, I'm going to give you the complete blueprint to do just that. We are going to build your champion's mindset from the ground up, giving you the exact tools and strategies used by Olympians, Super Bowl winners, and world record holders to dominate their competition. This isn't about motivational fluff or feel-good quotes. This is a practical, actionable system for rewiring your brain for peak performance. We're going to turn your mind from a liability under pressure into your single greatest competitive advantage. So what is this champion's mindset? It's not just about thinking positive. It's a sophisticated operating system for high-stakes performance. It's an internal fortress that protects you from the chaos of competition. And it's built on 4 foundational pillars. Pillar 1. Ironclad confidence. This isn't arrogance. It's a deep, unshakable belief in your abilities that's forged in preparation, not just success. It's the quiet knowledge that you've put in the work and you deserve to be here. A truly confident athlete doesn't hope to win. They expect to perform to their potential. We're going to teach you how to build what I call a confidence resume. A mental portfolio of your successes, your hard work, and your proven abilities that you can access in a split second to make you bulletproof against doubt. Pillar 2. Laser-sharp focus. The ability to block out distractions, the crowd, the scoreboard, the mistake you just made, the trash talk from your opponent, and lock in on the present moment. Most athletes think focus is about trying harder to concentrate. The opposite is true. True focus is about letting go. It's about effortlessly filtering out the noise and directing your attention only to the things that matter for the next play. Champions don't just have focus, they have control over their focus. They can zoom in on the critical details like the spin on a ball, and zoom out to see the big picture like the spacing on the field, all in an instant. We'll show you the techniques to control your attentional spotlight so you decide what gets your energy. Pillar 3. Constructive self-talk. That voice in your head? The one that whispered, "Don't screw this up?" Right now, it might be your harshest critic. It reminds you of every mistake, it questions your ability, it fills you with doubt. Most athletes let that voice run wild, sabotaging their own performance from the inside out. We are going to change that. You will learn to grab the steering wheel of your inner dialogue. We're going to turn that inner critic into your biggest ally, your most trusted coach. A voice that acknowledges mistakes without judgment and provides strategic, useful feedback. We will transform that negative chatter into productive, performance-enhancing fuel. And Pillar 4. Unbreakable resilience. Everyone gets knocked down. Every athlete makes a mistake. Every team faces a deficit. The champion is simply the one who gets up faster, smarter, and stronger. Resilience isn't about being tough and ignoring pain. It's about processing failure efficiently and using it as a catalyst for future success. It's about viewing setbacks not as dead ends but as data. It's information you can use to adjust and improve. We're going to build your bounce-back mechanism so that a bad call from the ref, a missed shot, or a lost point fuels your next success instead of derailing your entire performance. Mastering these 4 pillars, confidence, focus, self-talk, and resilience, will do more than just help you win more games. It will fundamentally change your relationship with your sport. It will replace performance anxiety with eager anticipation. It will transform pressure from something you fear into something you crave, because you'll know you have the mental tools to handle it. Imagine stepping into that high-stakes moment, not with a whisper of "don't screw this up," but with a roar of "this is my time." That's the shift we're going to make. This isn't just about sports psychology. It's about performance architecture. We're going to deconstruct what makes the greatest athletes tick and give you the schematics to build it for yourself piece by piece. In the parts to come, we will dive deep into each of these pillars with specific, scientifically backed exercises. We'll cover everything from advanced visualization techniques that trick your brain into thinking it's already succeeded, to simple breathing exercises that can stop a panic response in its tracks in under 10 seconds. We'll talk about building pre-game routines that are as solid as a bank vault and developing a short memory that lets you instantly forget a mistake and focus on the next play. You have already put in the hours. You've sweated, you've bled, you've sacrificed. You've earned your spot in the arena. Now it's time to forge the final weapon in your arsenal, the one that will unlock your true potential and make all the difference when the game is on the line. It's time to build your champion's mindset. So what is a champion's mindset? It's not a magic trick. It's not some genetic gift bestowed upon the chosen few. It is a meticulously constructed fortress, built brick by brick, in the one place where your most important battles are fought, the 6 inches between your ears. Every athlete understands the external opponent. You study their film, you learn their tendencies, you build a game plan to defeat them. But the most dangerous opponent you will ever face doesn't wear a different jersey. It doesn't have a scouting report. It lives inside your own head. See, within every single one of us there are 2 voices constantly at war. There's the architect and there's the saboteur. The architect is the voice of your potential. It's the part of you that remembers every early morning workout, every drop of sweat, every single rep you pushed through when your body screamed no. It's the voice that says, "I am prepared. I have earned this. I am capable." The architect builds you up with the truth of your hard work. But then there's the saboteur. The saboteur is a master of disguise. Sounds just like you, but it's a liar. It's the voice that whispers in the moments of highest pressure. It's the doubt that creeps in when you're standing on the free throw line with the game tied. It's the fear that tightens your muscles when you're in the starting blocks. The saboteur's only goal is to protect you from the possibility of failure, and it does this by convincing you to fail early, to not even try your best. It says, "What if you miss? Everyone will blame you. You're not as good as they are. You're going to let everyone down." It feeds on fear and thrives in uncertainty. A champion isn't someone who is born without a saboteur. A champion is someone who has trained their architect to be louder, stronger, and more convincing. Let me tell you about a quarterback I once knew. Let's call him Alex. Physically, he was a specimen. Cannon for an arm, could run a 4.540, and had a football IQ that was off the charts. In practice, he was unstoppable. He'd throw dots, make checks at the line like a 10-year veteran, and lead the offense with incredible confidence. His coaches saw a future first-round draft pick. His teammates saw a leader. But when the stadium lights came on for a big game, something changed. We were in the state semifinals. Down by 4, a minute and 12 seconds left on the clock, ball on our own 20-yard line. This was the moment Alex was built for. All that training, all that talent ready to be unleashed. The first play, he throws a perfect 15-yard out route. Clock stops. The architect was in control. "Easy," it said. "Just like practice." The next play, he scrambles for a first down. Poised, confident. They march down the field. Now it's 1st and 10 from the opponent's 25. 30 seconds left. And then he took a sack. A small mistake, but it was all the opening the saboteur needed. You could see it in his body language. The shoulders slumped just a little. The confident swagger was replaced by a nervous energy. He got back to the huddle, and the voice in his head was no longer the architect. The saboteur had hijacked the microphone. "You just cost us 8 seconds, it sneered. "You're losing control. The pressure is too much." He threw an incompletion on 2nd down. The saboteur grew louder. "See? Your timing is off. You're choking." On 3rd down, he had a receiver wide open in the end zone. A throw he could make in his sleep. But he hesitated. Just for a split second. The saboteur was screaming now. "Don't overthrow it. Don't underthrow it. What if it gets intercepted? This is all on you." That hesitation was enough. He aimed the ball instead of throwing it, it sailed high and the game was over. Physically, nothing had changed. His arm was just as strong. His mind still knew the plays. But the internal battlefield had been lost. The saboteur had won. So how do we fix this? How do we silence the saboteur and empower the architect? The first step, the absolute foundation of a champion's mindset, is radical self-awareness. You cannot defeat an enemy you do not recognize. You have to become a detective of your own thoughts. For the next week, I want you to simply listen. Listen to that inner dialogue without judgment. When you make a mistake in practice, what's the first thing your mind says? Is it, "Okay, what can I learn from that? Let's get the next one"? That's the architect. Or is it, "You idiot. You always do that. The coach is losing faith in you"? That's the saboteur. You need to identify its signature lines. For some, it's comparison. "He's so much faster than me." For others, it's catastrophizing. "If I miss this shot, the whole season is a waste." Or it's generalization. "I never play well in big games." These are all lies. They are distortions of reality designed by the saboteur to keep you in a state of fear. Once you can identify the voice, you can begin to separate yourself from it. Here's a simple but incredibly powerful technique. Give your saboteur a name. It can be a goofy name like Gremlin Gus or Negative Nancy. It sounds silly, but what you're doing is externalizing the voice. It's not you who thinks you're going to fail. It's just Gus, the scared little gremlin in your head, running his mouth again. When that thought pops up, "You're not good enough," instead of believing it, you can simply say, "Oh, thanks for the input, Gus, but I'm busy right now." You take away its power by refusing to identify with it. You are not your negative thoughts. You are the one who observes the thoughts. This separation is the first crucial step to taking back control. After you've learned to spot the saboteur, it's time to actively start building up the architect. And you do this not with wishful thinking but with cold, hard evidence. I want you to start an evidence log. This can be a note on your phone or a small notebook you keep in your gym bag. Every single day, I want you to write down 3 things you did well. It doesn't have to be a game-winning home run. It can be as small as "I nailed my nutrition plan today," or "I pushed for 1 extra rep on my last set," or "I gave a teammate encouragement when they were struggling." What you are doing is building a factual, undeniable case for your own competence and character. The saboteur deals in vague, emotional fears. The architect deals in facts and evidence. So when the saboteur shows up in a high-pressure moment and says, "You always crumble under pressure," you've trained your architect to respond. It can now say, "That's factually incorrect. According to my evidence log, on Tuesday I made 5 straight clutch free throws at the end of practice when I was exhausted. On Friday I led the team through a tough drill. The evidence suggests I perform well when things get difficult." This isn't about arrogance. This is about truth. You are simply reminding yourself of the work you've put in and the capabilities you have already proven. You are replacing the saboteur's fiction with the architect's facts. This process, recognizing the liar and arming the truth teller with evidence, is the bedrock. It is the fundamental skill upon which everything else is built. It's not a one-time fix. It's a daily practice, like lifting weights for your mind. You are slowly, deliberately changing the balance of power in your own head. You've now learned to identify the battlefield and recognize the 2 forces at war for your mind. You have the first tools to distinguish the voice of doubt from the voice of your true potential. But recognition is only half the battle. Now we must go on the offensive. It's time to learn how to systematically dismantle the saboteur's arguments and actively program the architect's voice to be the default setting in your mind, turning belief into an automatic, reflexive instinct. The first step in this offensive is to stop treating the saboteur's voice as an undeniable truth and start treating it like a hostile witness in a courtroom. You are the defense attorney for your own potential, and you need to cross-examine every single accusation it hurls at you. This process is called cognitive reframing, and it's your primary weapon. It works in 3 simple steps. First, isolate the accusation. When that negative thought pops up, you're going to choke. You're not fast enough. You don't belong here. Don't just let it float around in the fog of your mind. Grab it. Acknowledge it. Even better, write it down. Drag it out into the light. The saboteur is a coward. It loves the shadows. By making the thought tangible, you take away its amorphous, overwhelming power. It's no longer a feeling. It's a specific, testable claim. Second, interrogate the evidence. This is where you become a relentless prosecutor of negativity. The saboteur says, "You always mess up under pressure." Your response, as the architect's defense attorney, should be, "Always? Is that factually true?" And then you present your counter-evidence. What about the regional qualifier last year when I hit the winning shot with 3 seconds on the clock? What about 2 weeks ago in practice when I nailed that exact same routine 9 times out of 10? What about the thousands of hours I've put in? The saboteur deals in sweeping generalizations and emotional hyperbole. Your job is to counter with cold, hard facts. It will point to one failure. You will point to 100 successes. Its entire case is built on a foundation of distorted memories and fear-based projections. When you start shining the light of objective reality on it, the whole flimsy structure begins to crumble. Third, resentence the thought. Once you've dismantled the lie, you must replace it with the truth. This is crucial. You can't leave a void. If you just deny the negative, it will creep back in. You have to actively state the new constructive belief. So, "I'm going to choke" becomes "I feel nervous, which is normal because this matters to me. But I am trained, I am prepared, and I will focus on my process one step at a time." Notice the difference. It's not a cheesy, baseless affirmation like, "I'm the greatest." It's a grounded, powerful statement of fact. It acknowledges the feeling of pressure, but reestablishes the reality of your preparation. You're taking control of the narrative, replacing the saboteur's fiction with the architect's strategy. Now, cross-examination is a powerful tool in the moment, but a great legal team doesn't just play defense. They build an overwhelming, preemptive case. This brings us to our second technique, building your evidence locker. Your mind is constantly being fed data. The problem is, we are evolutionarily wired to remember the threats and the failures, the time the lion almost got us, not the 50 times it didn't. The saboteur exploits this negative bias. Your job is to consciously and deliberately counteract it by collecting proof of your competence. Your evidence locker is a curated collection of your personal wins, big and small. It is the highlight reel you force your brain to watch. So, how do you build it? You start a journal. Not a diary of your feelings, but a logbook of success. At the end of every single training session, write down 3 things you did well, even if it was a bad day. "My form on that last lift was perfect. I communicated effectively with my teammate on that one play. I pushed through when I wanted to quit." These small deposits of proof build a massive reserve of confidence over time. You should also collect physical and digital evidence. Save the email from a coach praising your work ethic. Keep a photo of you crossing a finish line. Bookmark the video of a game where you played out of your mind. This isn't about ego. It's about data. The saboteur makes claims without evidence. Your evidence locker is your irrefutable, multi-volume encyclopedia of your own capability, and you must review it regularly. Make it a ritual. Before a big competition, don't just sit there and let the saboteur whisper in your ear. Open the locker. Read the journal entries. Watch the video. Remind yourself with overwhelming proof of who you are and what you've done. You are proactively arming the architect with the ammunition it needs to win any internal argument, long before the battle even begins. The third tool is more subtle, but it's a piece of mental jujitsu that can fundamentally alter your internal dialogue. It's the simple act of replacing the word "but" with the word "and." Think about how the saboteur talks. You played a great first half, but you got tired in the second. You have the skill, but you don't have the mental toughness. The word "but" negates everything that came before it. It's a verbal eraser. It dismisses the positive and puts all the focus on the negative. The architect, however, uses the word "and." I played a great first half, and I have an opportunity to improve my conditioning for the second. I have the skill, and I am actively developing my mental toughness. See the shift? And allows 2 ideas to coexist. It validates the success while acknowledging the area for growth. It transforms a crippling criticism into a constructive action plan. I can be proud of my effort and still see room for improvement. I can feel anxious before a match and be fully capable of performing at my best. This simple linguistic switch stops the internal civil war. It creates a mindset of integration, not conflict. It allows you to be a masterpiece and a work in progress at the same time. These techniques, reframing the evidence locker, the power of, and are the bedrock of your new mental operating system. But for the biggest moments, when the pressure is at its absolute peak, the world's elite deploy one more, incredibly powerful strategy: the alter ego. Look at the greats. Kobe Bryant had the Black Mamba. Bo Jackson, one of the greatest athletes of all time, spoke of a third-person version of himself on the field, a different entity that could do the impossible. This isn't an accident. The alter ego is the ultimate psychological weapon. It's a persona you create, a character that embodies every single trait of your ideal competitor. Relentless, focused, fearless, and utterly confident. Why does this work? Creates psychological distance. Your everyday self might have doubts, fears, and insecurities. That's normal. But your alter ego doesn't. When the saboteur whispers, "You're not good enough," it's not talking to your competitive persona. The Black Mamba isn't afraid of the last shot. That's what it lives for. By stepping into your alter ego, you can access a level of confidence and focus that might feel out of reach for your normal self. It's a mental suit of armor. So build one. Give it a name. Define its characteristics. How does it walk? How does it talk? How does it react to a mistake? It doesn't slump its shoulders. It immediately looks for the next play. It doesn't get rattled, it gets locked in. Then create a trigger. A small physical ritual that signals the transformation. It could be the way you tie your shoes, tapping your chest twice, or a specific phrase you say to yourself. This trigger is the switch. When you perform it, you are no longer just you. You are your champion self, stepping onto the stage, fully armed and ready for battle. These 4 pillars, dismantling the lie, building the proof, changing the language, and creating the persona, form a proactive, offensive strategy. You are no longer just weathering the storm of self-doubt. You are seizing control of the weather itself. You are systematically starving the saboteur of its power and channeling all of that energy into the architect, building a mind that is not just resistant to pressure, but one that actively seeks it out and thrives in it. But these weapons are most effective when they are wielded from a position of strength, from a mind that is fundamentally calm and centered. The saboteur's greatest ally is chaos. It thrives in the noise of anxiety, fear, and distraction. So how do you build the fortress? How do you quiet the noise when your heart is pounding out of your chest, and a million thoughts are screaming for your attention? We've forged the sword and shield. Now we must learn to master the unshakable stance of the warrior who wields them. That stance isn't built on brute force or blind hope. It's forged in the quiet furnace of the present moment. It's the ability to stand in the eye of a hurricane, to feel the wind and hear the thunder, but to remain utterly, profoundly still at your core. The world's greatest athletes aren't immune to pressure. They have simply mastered the art of paying attention to what matters, when it matters most. Think about it. The final seconds of a tied game. You're on the free throw line. The championship is literally in your hands. What's happening? The roar of the crowd becomes a dull hum. Your own heartbeat thumps in your ears like a war drum. And the thoughts, oh the thoughts. Don't miss. Everyone is watching. What if I airball? Remember that time in high school? Your elbow is too high. No, it's too low. Just make it. Please just make it. It's a cognitive riot, a mental civil war. Your focus shatters into 1,000 tiny pieces, scattered across past failures and future fears. This is the moment where games are lost. Not because of a lack of skill, but because of a lack of presence. The body is on the free throw line, but the mind is everywhere else. The secret of the champion is learning to call the mind home. It's not about silencing the noise, that's impossible. It's about learning to turn down the volume on everything that doesn't serve you, and turning up the volume on the one thing that does, the task at hand. Let me tell you a story. February 11th, 1990, Tokyo, Japan. In one corner you have the most feared human being on the planet, Iron Mike Tyson. Undefeated, undisputed, a wrecking ball of a man who didn't just beat his opponents, he psychologically dismantled them before the first bell even rang. In the other corner, a man named James "Buster" Douglas, a talented but seemingly unmotivated fighter. The betting odds weren't just long. They were a joke. 42-1. No one, and I mean no one, gave him a chance. But something was different about Buster Douglas that night. 23 days earlier, his mother Lula Pearl had passed away. She had always been his biggest believer, telling everyone her son was going to beat Mike Tyson. Now she was gone. For most people, a tragedy of that magnitude would be a crippling distraction, a reason to be unfocused, to be anywhere but in a ring with a monster. But for Douglas, it became his anchor. He wasn't fighting for a belt, for money, or for fame. He was fighting to honor his mother's belief in him. That singular, powerful purpose created a bubble of impossible calm around him. Tyson came out like he always did, a whirlwind of controlled violence. But Douglas didn't panic. He didn't get caught up in the Tyson mystique. He wasn't thinking about the 42-1 odds. He wasn't thinking about the press calling him a stepping stone. He was just there. He was present. He used his incredible 12-inch reach advantage, pumping a crisp, sharp jab into Tyson's face over and over. He controlled the distance. He executed his game plan. In the 8th round, Tyson finally landed one of his signature uppercuts. Douglas went down, and for a second the world returned to its normal axis. Of course, this is how it was supposed to go. The dream was over. But as the referee's count reached 9, Douglas, with a swollen eye and exhausted legs, pushed himself back to his feet. He had survived the monster's best shot. And in that moment the narrative shifted. The fear was gone. All that was left was the task. In the 10th round, it was Douglas who landed a ferocious uppercut, followed by a flurry of punches that sent the invincible Mike Tyson crashing to the canvas for the first time in his career. It was over. The greatest upset in sports history. How did he maintain that unshakable stance against a force of nature like Tyson, while carrying the weight of personal grief? He did it by mastering 3 core skills of elite focus. The first is finding your anchor. An anchor is a single neutral point of focus in the present moment that you can return to when your mind starts to drift. It tethers you to the now. For a basketball player at the free throw line, the anchor could be the feel of the pebbled leather of the ball in your hands, the 3 deep breaths you take every single time, the specific spot on the front of the rim you look at. For Buster Douglas, it was his jab. Jab. Move. Jab. It was simple, repeatable, and kept him locked into his strategy, preventing him from getting overwhelmed by the chaos around him. Your anchor is your home base in the middle of a hurricane. It doesn't stop the storm, but it stops you from being swept away by it. What is yours? The feeling of your cleats on the turf? The sound of the ball hitting your glove? The rhythm of your breathing as you run? Find it. Practice returning to it. The second skill is mastering the process cue. Under pressure, our minds jump to the outcome. I have to make this shot. I have to win this point. I can't lose. This is poison. Why? Because you don't directly control the outcome. You don't control if a gust of wind pushes your golf ball, or if the referee makes a bad call, or if your opponent makes a miraculous play. Focusing on the outcome creates anxiety because it's a focus on the uncontrollable. Champions shift their focus to the process, the 1 or 2 key actions they can control that will lead to the desired outcome. Instead of, I have to make this free throw, the thought becomes, bend knees, elbow in, follow through. Instead of, I have to beat this guy, Buster Douglas thought, jab, control the distance. Each process cue is a small, manageable instruction. It simplifies the complex. It takes a mountain of pressure and breaks it down into a single climbable step. By focusing only on the process, you liberate yourself from the tyranny of the result. You perform freely and instinctively because your mind is occupied with doing, not with worrying. The third and most powerful skill is a simple 3-word question. What's important now? Often abbreviated as WIN. This is your mental reset button. Your shortstop just made an error. Your mind starts screaming about the runner on base, about how your teammate let you down. You feel the anger and frustration rising. Stop. Ask yourself, what's important now? The answer isn't the error. That's in the past. The answer is, this next batter. This next pitch. You're a quarterback who just threw an interception. The crowd is groaning. You feel the weight of the mistake. What's important now? Not the pick. It's over. It's the next drive. The next play call. This question is a surgical tool. It cuts away the useless clutter of the past and the future and focuses the full power of your attention on the present moment, on the immediate task. It's a discipline. You might have to ask yourself this question 100 times in a single game. Every time you feel your focus drift, every time an emotion threatens to hijack your performance. What's important now? It's the ultimate expression of the unshakable stance, a constant, conscious choice to inhabit the moment where performance actually lives. Finding your anchor, focusing on the process, and asking what's important now, these are not magic tricks. They are trainable skills. Buster Douglas didn't just wake up with an iron will that day in Tokyo. He found a purpose so profound it forced him into the present moment, where his true skill could finally shine. You don't need a personal tragedy to find that focus. You just need to practice. In the gym, in drills, in low-stakes scrimmages, you train your attention just like you train your muscles. But this raises a critical question. This all works when you're striving for success. But what happens when the anchor slips? What happens when you follow the process perfectly and you still fail? When you give it your all and the result is still a loss? That's when the champion's mindset faces its greatest, most brutal test. Confronting the reality of failure without letting it break you. It stings. It burns. Sometimes it feels like a physical weight on your chest, an ache that won't go away. This is the moment that separates the good from the great. Because anyone can be confident when they're winning. Anyone can follow the process when the results are there. But the true architecture of a champion's mind is forged in the fire of defeat. Let's be brutally honest. The world doesn't give you a trophy for trying hard. The scoreboard doesn't care about your good intentions. It only shows the final result. And when that result is a loss, your mind has a choice. It can fracture, creating a narrative of blame, shame, and inadequacy. Or it can do what champions do, it can get to work. There's a story about a swimmer, a college phenom. For 4 years, her entire life revolved around a single number on a digital clock. Every two-a-day practice, every meal, every skip party was a deposit in the bank, an investment toward qualifying for the Olympic trials. The final race of the national championship was her shot. She was in lane 5, the favorite. The gun goes off. The water feels perfect. Her rhythm is flawless. She's hitting her splits, exactly as she and her coach planned. Coming into the final turn, she's a half body length ahead. It's happening. Everything she's ever worked for is 50 meters away. She touches the wall and looks up at the board. She sees the number 1 next to the name in lane 6. She sees the number 2 next to her name. The difference? 0.07 of a second. The length of a single fingernail. In that instant, her world collapsed. The 4 years of sacrifice, the pain, the discipline, it all felt like a lie. A cruel joke. That night, she didn't talk to anyone. She just sat with that feeling of emptiness. The failure was so total, so absolute, it felt like it had erased her entire identity. Who was she, if not the swimmer who was going to the trials? She was just the swimmer who almost did. This is the abyss. This is the moment most people turn away. They either blame something, a bad start, a wave from the next lane, or they internalize it, letting the failure define them. I'm a choker. I don't have what it takes. But her coach, a man who had trained champions for 30 years, had given her a specific protocol for this exact moment. He called it the 24-hour rule. This is the first and most counterintuitive step to processing failure like a champion. You must give yourself permission to grieve. You must allow yourself to feel the full, crushing weight of your disappointment. Be angry. Be sad. Punch a pillow. Yell in your car. Eat a pint of ice cream. For a strictly limited period of time, say 24 hours, you are allowed to wallow. Why? Because suppressing that emotion is like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. It takes immense energy, and eventually it's going to pop up, usually at the worst possible time. Champions don't pretend it doesn't hurt. They acknowledge the pain, they honor the effort that led to the pain, and they give it a container. They say, for 24 hours, this loss is my whole world. But here's the critical part. When the 24 hours are up, it's over. The mourning period is done. The emotion is processed. Now the work begins. This is step 2, the objective autopsy. The swimmer met with her coach. There was no coddling, no you'll get him next time. He pulled up the race footage on a laptop, and they performed an autopsy on the loss, as cold and clinical as a surgeon examining a patient. They weren't looking for blame, they were looking for data. They broke down every single frame. Her start was 0.03 seconds slower than her best. Her third turn, the big one, she glided a fraction of a second too long before her kickout. Her head position in the last 15 meters was a few degrees too high, creating microscopic drag. Notice the language here. It wasn't you messed up the turn. It was the glide on the third turn was extended by 0.12 seconds. It wasn't you choked at the end. It was head angle increased by 4 degrees, impacting hydrodynamics. This process strips the emotion and shame out of the failure. It transforms a soul-crushing defeat into a set of solvable engineering problems. You are no longer a failure. You are a scientist who just ran an experiment that yielded an unexpected result. Now, you analyze the data to figure out why. You detach your ego from the outcome. The outcome is not a reflection of your worth. It is simply information. This is the single biggest mental shift you can make. Amateurs take failure personally. Professionals take it analytically. Amateurs see a loss as a verdict. Professionals see it as a diagnostic tool. The autopsy's only purpose is to find the truth of what happened, so you can build a plan. Which brings us to step 3, the forward-facing action plan. Based on the data from the autopsy, the swimmer and her coach built a new training protocol. It wasn't vague like, "We need to work on turns." It was specific. It was, for the next 12 weeks, every practice will end with 10 50-meter sprints focusing solely on an explosive kickout, with a target glide time of no more than 1.5 seconds. It wasn't get a better start. It was 30 minutes of block start drills 3 times a week, measuring reaction time with a sensor. This is how you convert the poison of failure into the fuel of progress. The plan gives you back your sense of control. The pain of the loss, that raw, directionless energy, is now channeled into a precise, purposeful mission. You're no longer haunted by the past. You are actively building a different future. Your focus shifts from the result you didn't get to the process you will now execute. This 3-step process, mourn, analyze, plan, is a system for metabolizing failure. It allows you to extract every ounce of value from your losses without letting them destroy your confidence. It's what separates athletes who are broken by a tough loss from those who are built by it. The swimmer? She spent the next year not thinking about the Olympics. She thought about her glide time. She thought about her head position. She fell in love with the process of solving the problems her failure had revealed. 4 years later, she wasn't just at the Olympic trials. She was standing on the podium. Failure is inevitable. Every great champion in every sport has a list of devastating losses that would have made most people quit. The difference is, they understood that a loss is only a dead end if you let it be. If you have a system for processing it, a loss isn't a wall. It's a blueprint. It's a map showing you exactly where you need to get stronger. It's a gift, wrapped in sandpaper. So you've learned how to look back at a failure, dissect it, and use it to build a better future. You have a system for processing the past. But what about the failures that haven't happened yet? What about the ghost of that last loss that haunts you at the starting line, whispering that you're going to fail again? How do you silence that voice? That's the fear of failure, and it's a completely different monster. One that can paralyze you before the contest even begins. To conquer it, you have to understand what it truly is. The fear of failure isn't just about losing a game. Nobody likes to lose. This is deeper. It's the fear of the consequences of failure. It's the fear of judgment from your teammates, your coach, your parents. It's the fear of disappointing the people who believe in you. It's the fear of that quiet, gut-wrenching moment in the locker room when you have to face the fact that you weren't good enough. It's the fear of your own internal narrative, the one that says, "I told you so. You're an imposter." This fear is a ghost in the machine. It's a primitive survival instinct gone wrong. For our ancestors, being judged and ostracized by the tribe could literally mean death. So our brains are hardwired to desperately avoid social failure. The problem is, your brain can't tell the difference between being kicked out of the tribe and missing a free throw in the final seconds. The same alarm bells go off. The same flood of cortisol and adrenaline hits your system. Your muscles get tight, your breathing gets shallow, your focus narrows to a pinhole. And you can only see one thing: the threat, the possibility of failure. And under that spotlight, athletes don't just lose. They choke. Let me take you to the pristine grass courts of Wimbledon, 1993. The ladies' singles final. On one side of the net is the legendary Steffi Graf, a titan of the sport. On the other, Jana Novotná, a brilliant Czech player chasing her first Grand Slam singles title. And she is dominating. She wins the first set. In the deciding third set, she's up 4-1. She has a game point to go up 5-1. Victory is not just possible, it is probable. It is right there, a single well-executed serve away. The championship is in her hands. And that's when the ghost appeared. She stepped up to the service line to seal the game, and she double faulted. A flicker of doubt. The crowd murmurs. Steffi Graf, a predator, senses weakness. Novotná's next serve is timid. Her ground strokes, once so crisp and powerful, become hesitant. She's no longer playing to win. She's playing not to lose. And there is a universe of difference between those two mindsets. What followed was one of the most infamous collapses in sports history. The cruel math of a choke is that it happens fast. Point by point, her lead evaporated. The more she thought about the trophy, the more it slipped through her fingers. Her body, once a finely tuned instrument, was now betraying her. Her feet felt like they were stuck in mud. Her arm felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. She lost the next 5 straight games. She lost the match. The image that followed is seared into the memory of every tennis fan. A devastated Novotna, receiving the runner-up trophy, sobbing uncontrollably on the shoulder of the Duchess of Kent. She didn't just lose a tennis match. She lost it in front of the entire world, crumbling when it mattered most. The fear of failure had become a self-fulfilling prophecy. So how do you prevent this? How do you exorcise that ghost? You can't just tell yourself, "Don't be afraid." That's like telling someone, "Don't think of a pink elephant." It doesn't work. The solution is not to eliminate the fear, but to change your entire relationship with failure itself. You have to reframe it. Here's the mental shift, the first tool in your arsenal. You must separate the process from the outcome. This is absolutely critical. The outcome, winning or losing, is ultimately not 100% in your control. Your opponent gets a vote, a bad bounce, a questionable call by the ref, a sudden gust of wind. These things can affect the outcome. When you fixate on the outcome, you are anchoring your mind to something you cannot fully control. That's a recipe for anxiety. The process, however, your effort, your focus, your technique, your game plan, that is almost entirely within your control. A champion's mindset detaches self-worth from the scoreboard and attaches it to the execution of the process. Think of it this way. A basketball player takes a last-second shot. He executes it with perfect form, perfect follow-through, perfect arc. The ball hits the back of the rim and bounces out. Did he fail? From an outcome perspective, yes. But from a process perspective, he succeeded. He did everything in his power to make the shot. He controlled what he could control. And you have to learn to find victory in that. Your new definition of winning becomes, did I give my absolute best effort? Did I stick to the game plan? Did I execute my role to the best of my ability? If the answer is yes, you walk off that field or that court with your head held high regardless of the score. This shift starves the fear of failure. The fear can't terrorize you with the outcome if you're no longer obsessed with it. The second tool is even more powerful, but it requires courage. I call it building a failure resume. Most of us spend our lives trying to hide our failures, to bury them. We're going to do the opposite. I want you to literally take out a piece of paper or open a document, and I want you to list your biggest failures in your sport. That time you struck out with the bases loaded. The race you were favored to win but finished 5th. The tryout you didn't make. Write them down. Feel the sting of them again for a moment. Now, next to each one, I want you to write one sentence answering this question. What did I learn from this? Or how did it make me stronger? Maybe striking out taught you how to handle pressure better next time. Maybe losing that race revealed a weakness in your training that you were then able to fix, making you a much faster runner in the long run. Maybe not making the team lit a fire under you that drove you to work harder than anyone else, and you came back the next year and became the star player. What you are doing is transforming these monuments of shame into pillars of strength. You are rewriting your own story. Failure is no longer an endpoint. It's a data point. It's feedback. It's tuition for the school of mastery. Every champion has a long and detailed failure resume. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school varsity team. He used that failure as fuel for his entire career. He famously said, "I've failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed." Let's go back to Wimbledon. After her devastating collapse in 1993, Jana Novotná could have let that failure define her. She could have become the player who always choked. And for years it seemed like she might. She lost in another Wimbledon final in 1997. The whispers grew louder. The ghost was still there. But then came 1998. 5 years after her public breakdown, she fought her way back to the Wimbledon final for a third time. She was older now, the underdog. But she was also different. She had built her failure resume. She had learned from the pain. She understood what it felt like to fall apart on the biggest stage, and she had survived. The worst had already happened, and it hadn't destroyed her. The fear had less power now. This time she played with a calm resolve. She focused on the process, point by point, shot by shot. She didn't play not to lose, she played to win. And she did. She won Wimbledon. And in one of the most beautiful moments in sports, who was there to present her the trophy? The Duchess of Kent, the same woman whose shoulder she had cried on 5 years earlier. And the Duchess leaned in and said to her, "I knew you would do it. I'm so proud of you." She didn't say, "Congratulations on finally not choking." She said, "I'm proud of you," because the victory was made meaningful by the failure that preceded it. By reframing her relationship with failure, Novotná didn't just win a trophy. She won a battle against the ghost in her own mind. So your task is to do the same. Redefine winning as executing your process and build your failure resume. See your setbacks not as indictments of your character, but as essential steps on your path to greatness. Once you truly believe that failure is your teacher, not your judge, its power to paralyze you vanishes. You've learned to reframe failure. You no longer fear losing. But what happens when the tables are turned? What happens when you're not the underdog but the heavy favorite? What happens when everyone expects you to win, and anything less is considered a monumental failure? That's the crushing force of pressure, and it requires an entirely different set of tools to manage. This pressure isn't an external enemy you can fight. It's an internal one. It's the voice in your head that whispers, "Don't mess this up." It's the subtle shift in your body, the tightening in your chest, the hesitation in your muscles that wasn't there when you were the underdog. When you're the favorite, the focus flips from the joy of winning to the terror of losing. Every move is scrutinized, every mistake amplified. This is the breeding ground for the phenomenon athletes fear most: choking. Choking isn't a lack of skill. It's a surplus of thought. It's what happens when your conscious, analytical brain hijacks the fluid, intuitive processes that your body has perfected through thousands of hours of practice. You stop playing the game and start thinking about playing the game. You're no longer focused on the ball, the puck, or the finish line. You're focused on the consequences. You're thinking about the headlines, the disappointed faces of your coaches and family, the social media backlash. Your attention splits, your focus shatters, and the very skills that made you the favorite seem to abandon you in your moment of greatest need. So how do the greats handle it? How did Michael Jordan, with the weight of Chicago on his shoulders every single night, make it look so easy? How did Tiger Woods, with the entire world expecting him to win every single tournament he entered, stay so composed? They mastered a concept so simple it's almost deceptive, yet so powerful it's the bedrock of mental toughness. They learned to control the controllables. This isn't just a catchy phrase. It's a discipline. It's the conscious, deliberate act of shrinking your world. When the pressure mounts and the noise of expectation becomes deafening, champions narrow their focus to an incredibly small, manageable circle of influence. They ruthlessly ignore everything outside of it. The crowd, the referees, the weather, what the media is saying, what their opponent is doing. All of it becomes irrelevant background noise. The only things that exist in their universe are the things they have direct, immediate control over: their effort, their attitude, and their execution in this exact moment. There is no greater story of this principle in action than Michael Phelps at the 2008 Beijing Olympics. He was on a historic quest for 8 gold medals in a single games. The pressure was unimaginable. He was in the final of the 200-meter butterfly, his signature event. The world wasn't just expecting him to win. They were expecting him to dominate. The moment he dove into the pool, disaster struck. His goggles malfunctioned. They cracked and slowly began to fill with water. By the halfway point, he was effectively blind. Imagine that. You're in the most important race of your life, on the biggest stage in the world, and your primary sense for navigation is gone. The average person panics. The average person's mind would be screaming, "It's over. I can't see. How can I win if I can't see the wall?" That's outcome-based thinking. That's focusing on the uncontrollables. But Michael Phelps wasn't an average person. His coach, Bob Bowman, had prepared him for this. They had practiced in the dark. They had intentionally made him swim with blacked-out goggles. They had built a plan that did not depend on sight. So, blind in the water, with the hopes of a nation and a historic record on the line, Phelps didn't think about winning. He didn't think about the gold medal. He didn't even think about the wall he couldn't see. He did the only thing he could control. He started to count. He knew with absolute certainty that it took him 19 strokes to get from one end of the pool to the other in the 200-meter fly. So he counted. No 3. He shut out the panic, he shut out the consequences, and he focused on his stroke, his form, his breathing, his count. On his final turn, he timed his kick perfectly based on his internal stroke count. touching the wall just 1/100th of a second ahead of his rival to win the gold medal. He didn't see that he had won. He had to look at the scoreboard to know. He won because when an uncontrollable variable, faulty goggles, appeared, he completely ignored it and anchored himself to the one thing he could control: his process. This is the key. You have to build your own anchor. You have to build a system that pulls you out of the chaotic future of what-ifs and plants you firmly in the controllable present. The first step is to draw your own circles of control. Picture 3 concentric circles. The very center circle is what you directly control. This is a very small circle. It contains your preparation, your effort, your focus, your self-talk, your breathing. That's it. The next circle out is what you can influence. You can't control your teammates, but you can influence them with your leadership and encouragement. You can't control the flow of the game, but you can influence it with a smart play. The outermost circle is everything you cannot control. This is the biggest circle by far. It's the weather, the officials, your opponent's lucky shot, the crowd, injuries, expectations. The amateur athlete spends most of their mental energy living in that outer circle, worrying and complaining about things they have zero power to change. The champion lives and dies inside that very small center circle. They pour 100% of their mental energy into the few things they can command. The second step is to build a rock-solid pre-performance routine. A routine is the ultimate tool for controlling the controllables. It's a predictable sequence of actions that tells your brain and your body, it's time. We've done this 1,000 times. We are in control here. Doesn't have to be complex. It could be listening to the same 3 songs, doing the exact same 5 stretches, or taking 10 deep diaphragmatic breaths right before the whistle blows. The routine isn't about superstition. It's about creating a sense of normalcy and control in an environment that is often chaotic and unpredictable. It's your personal anchor in the storm of pressure. Finally, you need a reset mechanism for when you feel your focus slipping during the performance itself. One of the most effective is the simple 3-word question. What's important now? Often abbreviated as WIN. The moment you make a mistake, or the crowd gets loud, or you start thinking about the score, you mentally shout at yourself, what's important now? The answer is never winning the championship. The answer is always something small, immediate, and controllable. It's get back on defense. It's focus on my next breath. It's watch the ball into my hands. This simple question acts like a mental circuit breaker, stopping the spiral of negative, outcome-based thinking and immediately refocusing your brain on the process, on the next controllable task. In the world of team sports, no one has weaponized this philosophy better than the New England Patriots dynasty under coach Bill Belichick. Their mantra was legendary: do your job. That phrase is just another way of saying control the controllables. Players weren't burdened with the pressure of winning the Super Bowl. They were tasked with one thing and one thing only: executing their specific assignment on that specific play. The quarterback's job wasn't win the game. It was read the safety and deliver an accurate pass. The lineman's job wasn't don't let them score. It was maintain your gap. By breaking down an immense high-pressure goal into hundreds of small, controllable individual jobs, the pressure was diffused. It became manageable. It became about execution, not expectation. Pressure, then, isn't something to be feared. It's a privilege. It means you've done the work. It means people believe in you. The weight of the crown is real, but it doesn't have to crush you. You handle it not by thinking about the crown, but by focusing on the single perfect step you need to take right now. You shrink your world until the only thing that matters is your effort, your attitude, and your execution. But what happens when, despite all this training, despite controlling every controllable, you still fail? What happens when the ball doesn't bounce your way, and the world sees you fall short? That's when a champion's mindset is truly forged. In the furnace of public failure. It's the moment the cameras zoom in on your face, catching the exact second your heart breaks. It's the silence of a locker room that feels louder than a screaming stadium. This is the crucible. This is where most aspiring greats are broken. But for the champion, this is where the real work begins. Think about the 2016 Golden State Warriors. The greatest regular season in the history of basketball. 73 wins. They were inevitable. Unstoppable. In the NBA Finals, they go up 3-1. A stranglehold. The coronation was planned, the champagne was on ice. And then they lost. And they didn't just lose. They collapsed in historic, spectacular fashion. They lost 3 straight games, becoming the first team ever to blow a 3-1 lead in the finals. It wasn't just a failure, it was a global meme. A punchline. The entire world witnessed their humiliation. In that moment of devastating defeat, two paths emerge. The first path is the one most people take. It's the path of blame, of shame, of disintegration. You point fingers. You internalize the narrative that you're a choker, that you can't handle the pressure. The failure becomes a brand seared onto your identity. That single loss defines the rest of your career. You play not to win, but to avoid another catastrophic failure. You play scared. But there is another path. The champion's path. It's a harder path, and it starts with a brutal, uncomfortable acceptance of reality. It starts by looking failure directly in the eye and not flinching. Because here is the fundamental truth that separates the good from the legendary. Failure is not a verdict on who you are. It is simply data. That's it. It is the universe giving you the most painfully honest, unfiltered feedback you will ever receive. While the world sees a humiliating loss, the champion sees a diagnostic report. While others see an end, the champion sees an education. The problem is that our brains are not wired to see it that way. When we fail, especially publicly, our primitive threat detection system, the amygdala, goes into overdrive. It doesn't know the difference between being defeated on a basketball court and being hunted by a predator on the savannah. To your brain, social death feels like actual death. The shame, the embarrassment, it's a neurological self-preservation mechanism kicking in, screaming, "Whatever you just did, never do that again." It's dangerous. A champion's mindset is the ability to override that primal instinct. It's the ability to tell that screaming voice in your head, "Thank you for the input, but I'm in control here." And you take that raw, painful emotional data and you process it through a system. It's not about ignoring the pain. It's about metabolizing it. It's an autopsy, not a funeral. And that process for the true elite looks something like this. First, you honor the emotion with a time limit. The great coach Chuck Noll had a 24-hour rule. You have 24 hours to celebrate a win or mourn a loss. You let it hurt. You feel the sting. You allow the disappointment to wash over you. In that Warriors locker room after Game 7, there was devastation. You have to let that happen. Suppressing it is a recipe for long-term psychological damage. But, and this is the critical part, you put a clock on it. When that 24 hours is up, it's over. You are no longer allowed to emotionally dwell in that space. The mourning period is finished. The work begins. Second, you conduct a brutally honest, emotionless deconstruction of the event. You become a detective at the crime scene of your own failure. You don't ask, "Whose fault was it?" You ask, "What happened? And why did it happen? What were the specific breakdowns in execution? Where did the system falter? Was it a lack of physical conditioning? A flaw in the game plan? A moment of mental weakness?" You have to be willing to look at your own reflection and admit your contribution to the failure without judgment. The 2016 Warriors had to admit that in the final moments, their fluid, motion-based offense became stagnant. They had to admit they were exhausted. They had to admit that their opponent, LeBron James, elevated to a level they simply couldn't match with the tools they had. It wasn't about blame, it was about diagnosis. Third, you extract the lesson. Out of that entire pile of data, you find the one or two critical takeaways that will change your trajectory. This is the most important step. Failure is only valuable if a lesson is learned. Otherwise, it's just pain. For the Warriors, the lesson was devastatingly clear. Even with a historic system and an MVP, they had a vulnerability. Against the absolute pinnacle of talent, they needed more firepower. Another elite creator who could get a bucket when everything else broke down. The pain of their failure didn't just suggest a solution. It screamed it. The data from their loss created the undeniable business case for going after Kevin Durant, a move that would fundamentally alter the league for years. Their greatest failure gave them the blueprint for their future dynasty. And finally, the fourth step, you ceremonially bury the failure. You have acknowledged the emotion, you have deconstructed the event, and you have extracted the lesson. Now, you must consciously choose to let the rest go. You separate the lesson from the emotional baggage and you leave the baggage behind. You have to. If you carry the ghost of that failure with you, it will infect your every future decision. You'll hesitate at the critical moment, afraid of repeating the past. The Warriors had to endure an entire year of 3-1 jokes. They could have let that define them. Instead, they let it fuel them. They took the lesson and they buried the rest. This is what failure is in the champion's operating system. It's not just a learning opportunity. It's a filter. It filters out the people who don't want it badly enough. It filters out the teams that don't have the internal fortitude to stick together. A loss like that would have destroyed most organizations. It would have led to trades, firings, and a cycle of blame. But for them, it forged them in fire. It tested their commitment and they came out stronger, more unified, with a singular obsessive purpose. And that purpose is the final transformation of failure. It becomes fuel. The deepest, most humiliating setbacks often provide the most potent and long-lasting motivation. The sting of that loss, the memory of the confetti falling for the other team, the sting of being a global punchline, that becomes the fire you use to get up at 5 a.m. That's the energy you tap into for that one last rep in the gym. For the next 2 years, the Warriors played with a relentless, vengeful fury. They weren't just playing to win. They were playing to erase the memory of their greatest failure. They turned the worst moment of their professional lives into the catalyst for their most dominant era. So when you fail, and you will fail, you have a choice. Will this be the end of your story, or will it be the inciting incident? Will it be a tombstone, or will it be a stepping stone? The pain is inevitable. The growth, however, is a choice. You can let it break you, or you can let it build you. You can run from the data, or you can analyze it and create a new blueprint. That choice, in the quiet moments after the crushing defeat, is what separates everyone who plays the game from the very few who become champions. It's the decision to not just endure the fire, but to be reborn from its ashes. And this process of rebirth isn't a one-time event. It's a habit, a muscle that needs to be built day after day. And how do we build that muscle? We don't wait for the storm to hit to learn how to build a boat. We build it in the calm, piece by piece, day by day. This is the architecture of a champion's mind, and it begins not with grand gestures, but with the quiet, consistent discipline of rituals. Think about it. The greatest athletes are masters of routine. Their lives aren't a chaotic mess of reactions. They are a deliberate sequence of actions designed to produce a specific state of mind. This isn't about superstition, like wearing the same socks for every game. This is about psychological priming. It's about creating a series of triggers that tell your mind and body, it's time. It's time to focus. It's time to perform. The pre-game ritual, the specific music you listen to, the way you stretch, the quiet moments of reflection, it's a launch sequence. It systematically strips away the distractions of the outside world, the doubts, the anxieties, and narrows your entire universe down to the task at hand. You are not leaving your mental state to chance. You are becoming the architect of your own certainty. You are building an anchor in the predictable so that when you step into the chaos of competition, you are grounded, centered, and in control. This control is the foundation. And on this foundation, we build the most powerful tool in our mental arsenal: visualization. Now, most people hear visualization, and they think it's just positive thinking. They picture themselves holding the trophy, and that's it. But that's like trying to build a skyscraper by only looking at a picture of the finished building. True mental rehearsal, the kind that rewires your brain for success, is far more detailed, far more rigorous. It's about creating a high-fidelity simulation in your mind. Neuroscience tells us that the brain doesn't always distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. When you mentally rehearse an action, the same neural pathways fire as when you physically perform it. You are getting reps without ever touching a ball, lifting a weight, or stepping on the field. You can practice your free throw form 1,000 times while lying in bed. You can perfect the turn in a swimming pool, feeling the water, hearing the splash, timing your breath, all in your mind's eye. This is process visualization, perfecting the how. It builds muscle memory not in your biceps, but in your brain, paving the neurological superhighways that lead to flawless execution under pressure. But then you have to take it a step further. This is where the champions separate themselves. They don't just visualize success. They visualize adversity. They visualize the comeback. They run simulations of failure. The quarterback doesn't just see the game-winning touchdown pass. He sees himself throwing an interception on the first drive. He feels that gut-wrenching drop, hears the crowd groan. And then he visualizes himself walking back to the sideline, taking a breath, and leading the team on the very next drive with unshakable poise. He practices the recovery. The golfer visualizes shanking a drive into the woods, but then visualizes the calm, methodical process of finding the ball, choosing the right club, and hitting a masterful recovery shot back onto the fairway. This isn't being negative, it's being prepared. It's a form of psychological inoculation. You are exposing your mind to the virus of failure in a controlled environment so that when it happens in the real world, and it will happen, your system already has the antibodies. You've been there before. You know the way out. One of the greatest examples of this is Michael Phelps. Before the 2008 Olympics, his coach would have him swim in the dark. He'd make him practice with broken goggles, with his swimsuit filled with water. They trained for chaos. So when Phelps was in the final of the 200-meter butterfly in Beijing, and his goggles filled completely with water on the first lap, he was blind. For anyone else, that's panic. That's a disaster. For Phelps, it was just another Tuesday practice. He had visualized this exact scenario. He knew his stroke count to the wall perfectly. He swam the last 150 meters blind, touched the wall, and not only won the gold medal but broke the world record. He didn't win because he was lucky. He won because he had already faced and defeated that failure 100 times in his mind. He had trained his mind for the moment his body or his equipment would fail him. This level of mental preparation directly fuels the third and most constant habit: curating your inner monologue. Every single one of us has a voice in our head. For most people, that voice is a critic. It's a heckler in the stands of your own mind. It says, "Don't choke," which only makes you think about choking. It says, "You can't beat this person," which seeds doubt. It replays your mistakes on a loop, draining your confidence with every showing. A champion learns to fire that critic and hire a coach. You have to consciously choose what that inner voice says. It's a skill just like shooting a basketball. You have to train it. When a negative thought enters your mind, you don't fight it and you don't believe it. You acknowledge it and then you replace it. This is the essence of cognitive reframing. Instead of, "I can't believe I missed that easy shot," it becomes, "Okay, reset. Focus on the next one. See the ball go in." Instead of, "I'm so tired I can't keep going," it becomes, "My opponent is tired too. This is where I push. This is my moment." Elite performers develop cue words, simple, powerful single-word commands to snap their focus back into place. Words like execute, next, breathe, attack. These aren't just words. They are anchors that pull your mind out of the quicksand of negative thought and back onto the solid ground of the present moment. Your self-talk becomes a tool, not a liability. It becomes your most trusted advisor, your unwavering source of encouragement, your tactical guide in the heat of battle. You are transforming your inner world from a source of conflict into your ultimate competitive advantage. Rituals to ground you, visualization to prepare you, self-talk to guide you. These are not separate techniques. They are a deeply interconnected system. Your pre-game ritual quiets your mind, creating the perfect canvas for visualization. Your visualization of overcoming adversity gives your self-talk the exact script it needs to use when things go wrong. Your positive self-talk reinforces the belief you built during your mental rehearsals. It's a continuous, self-reinforcing loop of mental and emotional strength. This is the daily work. This is the grinding in the dark when no one is watching. This is how you build the muscle of a champion, one thought, one image, one ritual at a time. You are no longer just participating in your sport. You are deliberately and methodically constructing the person capable of dominating it. You've built the habits, you've forged the muscle, you've practiced recovery from failures that haven't even happened yet. You are prepared. But what happens when preparation meets the moment of truth? The one that could define your entire career? What is the final alchemy that transforms a well-trained competitor into a legend who transcends the game itself? That is the final piece of the puzzle. It's the paradox that sits at the heart of all great performance. The final alchemy is not about adding one more thing. It's about letting everything else fall away. It's the art of surrender. Not surrender to your opponent, but surrender to your training. Surrender to the moment. Surrender to the thousands of hours of sweat, repetition, and sacrifice that have forged you into the competitor you are. It's the ultimate act of trust in yourself. Think of the most iconic moments in sports history. The last-second shot, the impossible comeback, the perfect routine. Do you see an athlete calculating angles and probabilities? Or do you see a human being operating on a higher plane of instinct, a state of pure, unadulterated flow? Michael Jordan, in the 1998 NBA Finals, doesn't stop to diagram his final play against Brian Russell. He flows. He moves with a certainty that transcends conscious thought. He has run that play 10,000 times in his mind and in the gym. The moment of truth is not the time to think about the training. It's the time to trust it. This state is often called the zone. It's a place where time seems to slow down, where the roaring crowd fades into a dull hum, and where your actions feel effortless, almost as if you're a spectator watching yourself perform flawlessly. But the zone is not a mythical place you stumble into by accident. It is a destination you earn the right to visit. Every single mental tool we have discussed in this series, from visualization and self-talk to focus control and emotional regulation, they are all, in essence, keys. They are keys that unlock the door to this state of ultimate performance. They are the tools you use to clear the clutter from your mind. The clutter of doubt, the clutter of fear, the clutter of what if I miss, what if I fail, what if I'm not good enough. The champion's mind doesn't waste energy fighting these thoughts in the critical moment. It has already done the work to make them irrelevant. The final step is to shift your focus from the outcome to the process. The amateur is obsessed with winning the trophy. The champion is obsessed with executing the next perfect step, the next clean pass, the next solid breath. They break down an overwhelming goal victory into a series of simple, manageable actions. They find joy not just in the destination, but in the journey of execution. When your entire universe shrinks to the ball, the finish line, or the next move, there is no room for fear. There is only the task at hand. This is mindfulness in motion. This is the essence of playing in the present. You cannot be anxious about the future or regretful of the past if your mind is 100% anchored in the now. And this requires a profound level of self-trust. You have to believe deep in your core that the work has been done. You've earned this. All the early mornings, the extra reps, the film sessions, the dietary discipline, that is your deposit into the bank of performance. In the heat of competition, you are simply making a withdrawal. You don't need to count the money as it comes out. You just need to trust that it's there because you put it there. This is why legends appear so calm under pressure. It's not that they don't feel the pressure. It's that their trust in their preparation is greater than the pressure of the moment. They have turned preparation into a form of armor. The great paradox is that peak control is achieved through release. You spend a lifetime meticulously building the ship, strengthening the hull, rigging the sails, charting the course. But when the perfect wind arrives, you don't achieve your greatest speed by gripping the wheel tighter. You achieve it by letting the wind fill the sails and trusting the vessel you've built to do its job. You guide, you adjust, but you do not strangle. You let go of the desperate need to control every variable, and you allow your instincts, honed by years of practice, to take over. This is the difference between a technician and an artist. A technician executes the plan. An artist becomes the plan. So how do we synthesize everything we've learned? You build your foundation with unshakable self-belief and a purpose that runs deeper than just winning. You use visualization not just to see success but to feel it, to make it a part of your neurological reality. You master your internal monologue, transforming your inner critic into your greatest coach. You learn to control your focus, shining a spotlight on what matters and letting the distractions fade into darkness. You embrace pressure, reframing it as a privilege that signals you are in a position to do something great. You build resilience, learning to see failure not as a verdict, but as a vital piece of feedback on the path to mastery. You do all of this day in and day out, not for the game itself, but for the moment within the game when you need to stop thinking and just be. All that work is the price of admission to the state of flow. This entire framework, this champion's mindset, is not a secret reserved for elite athletes. It is a blueprint for excellence in any field of human endeavor. It's for the surgeon whose hands must be steady, the lawyer delivering a closing argument, the student walking into a final exam, the artist facing a blank canvas. It is for anyone who has to perform when the stakes are high. It's a universal truth that the greatest battles are waged not on the field or in the arena, but in the 6 inches between your ears. That is where games are won and lost. That is where potential is realized or squandered. The journey to building a champion's mindset is a marathon, not a sprint. It is a daily commitment to sharpening the most powerful weapon you will ever have, your own mind. It's about understanding that you don't rise to the occasion. You default to the level of your mental and physical training. So make that level extraordinary. Do the work when no one is watching so you can perform when everyone is. Cultivate the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you are prepared for anything. Your greatest opponent was never the person in the other jersey. It was and always will be the voice of doubt in your own head. The final victory is not silencing that voice by force, but by making its arguments irrelevant through relentless preparation and unwavering self-trust. The puzzle is now complete. The pieces are in your hands. The foundation is there. The tools are yours to use. But when that moment of truth arrives, when the lights are at their brightest and the pressure is at its peak, the final instruction is the simplest and the most profound. Breathe, trust the work, and let go. That is the final alchemy. That is how you build a champion.